Well, hello friends out there. Today, if you're watching Live at Lunch with Rob and Riggs, we're going to be starting in about 1 minute, a little bit less than 1 minute. We're going to be talking about Mothman, the story of Point Pleasant. We've got a special guest today with Riggs. He's been to Point Pleasant. He's going to tell us all about his search for Mothman and what he saw down there, the Silver Bridge, everything. It's coming up here in just a moment on Live at Lunch with Rob and Riggs. There we go. Welcome to the show, Riggs. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great. Excited to be here. How are you?
Yeah, we're going to have a good time. Today, we've got a couple of things that are coming up first. As you guys know, we like to give you a couple of different reports. We've got a drop report that's going to come up halfway through the show. I'm going to tell you a little bit about weather and what to expect in Virginia Beach. And we're going to get to our main topic of Mothman. But we wanted to have a little bit of follow-up from last week's show. Is that right, Riggs?
Absolutely. So last week we talked about flat Earth, and we got a few interesting comments on that, some really good feedback. Appreciated everyone's opinion on that chiming in.
That was nice stuff. Actually, good conversation down there in the comments. Some idiots down there in the comments. Remember, we want to have a good conversation. We don't want to have a mean conversation.
Well, constructive criticism is always welcome, and if people have good evidence to present or good, links to submit to say, hey, check this place out, check out what we got. I'm always open to exploring, new ideas and seeing what that's all about.
Yeah, the idea is to have a conversation, but some of the comments we got, we're dealing with the internet. Do we get a conversation for some comments? Do we just get dumbasses?
I think on a few comments we got conversation and valuable interaction. On others, maybe not so much.
Yeah.
And I'll refrain from commenting any further on that. I'm going to keep it polite.
Friends out there, if you're watching right now, we're just kind of following up. But do know that this is actually a podcast. We just have the video behind the scenes. If you'd like to tune in live at lunch, you can always send us an email or chat with us live right here. We see it popping up on the screen, which is pretty nice. Riggs is over here to my right. You guys kind of have a little backstage behind the scene view. But before we jump into any of that, I think it's time to go ahead and talk a little bit about that weather coming up in Virginia Beach. Man, this weekend is going to be gusty, terribly gusty, windy. It's also going to be rainy. Man, not too nice. We're going to be in the 50s and 60s all weekend, so a little bit humid, some rain coming through. Not a great time to be down at the beach, but it is a great time if you like that overcast look to hit Red Wing Park or some of the other local parks and just have a look at First Landing and have a look at our beautiful area of Virginia Beach in a different way. If you're traveling down a little bit outside of Virginia Beach, you can get over to Buck Road Beach in Hampton and have a really great stormy view vista from over there at Foreman Road. It's a really cool look, and I hope you get a chance to see that. If you're out there, you'll also be by the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel, and you might be able to look for some flat Earth tunnel. Just as a little bit of fun from last week, but that's what we've got for the weekend weather. What do you think, Riggs?
I think the weather today and the forecast for the weekend is extremely appropriate given our subject matter for today. So, you're talking about a subject matter like Mothman. I don't know if our listeners are super familiar with that topic, but it's not exactly the type of topic you talk about in a clear day with sunshine and clear blue skies and all that. I suppose you could. However, it's just appropriate weather because it kind of sets the mood, sets the tone for the subject matter of today, which is Mothman, which is a very mysterious, being, if you will, whatever you want to refer to it as or call it.
Yeah, let's actually go ahead and start talking about Mothman. I'd love to understand a little bit more. Now, I'm kind of skeptical about things like this. I would believe that there's an extraterrestrial, interdimensional thing or a mutant or even a cryptozoologic type of creature before I would believe that the Earth is flat, mainly because I think you can demonstrably prove, actually I know you can demonstrably prove that the Earth is not flat, but there are some reasons these urban legends about these creatures, they don't just transcend today, they're all over the place. You can find them throughout history. And so they don't disappear. So either there's something in our psyche that wants to perpetuate these legends, these things, or people are really reporting on what they're seeing. So tell us, Riggs, tell us a little bit about Mothman. And again, guys, Riggs, you can't see Riggs. But he's standing right there. Give the crowd a thumbs up so they know you're real. Okay. Okay, so Riggs is there. He did an emoji of a thumbs up for those of you listening on the podcast. So he's real. So Flat Earth Dave, Riggs is real. Flat Earthers, Riggs is real. He's not a computer animated voice like some of you may have thought.
Yes, and today I have the good fortune of being here, and this is an excellent opportunity to talk about a subject matter that I find very interesting.
Let's get into it. Tell me a little bit about the Mothman.
So, I will preface this by saying that not on the position of Mothman that I am a true believer and that I believe everything as reported by
just get into it, baby. We want to hear it.
Things like that.
Yeah,
I'm getting there.
Cool.
I'm getting
I
there.
want to hear it.
Okay, warming up the crowd a little bit here.
Gotta warm them up some. They know.
All right. So, Mothman, what's commonly referred to as a cryptid, okay, or cryptozoological creature, mysterious creature of some type.
Yeah.
Now, he's associated with other familiar lore and legends and myths like Birdman. He's another manifestation of a Birdman type creature, which you find throughout multiple cultures throughout the world, not just here. However, Mothman is extremely interesting because he has much more recent sightings.
Okay.
And
how recent are we talking? I mean, Bigfoot was seen back in the 70s and 80s?
Yeah, the big tape with that one where they had the what was it, the 8mm type?
Yeah.
Your rolling tape of that. That one I think was in the late 60s or early 70s. I could be mistaken. But you see, Mothman has been spotted recently in Point Pleasant in the 1960s. The late 1960s was the last and most famous sightings. People claim they see him there from time to time.
Right.
But recently, Mothman has been spotted around Chicago.
Really?
Within the last 3 to 4 years, people have reported a Mothman sighting or Mothman sightings around the Metro Chicago area.
I'm with you. I'm going to go ahead and take a stop. I don't know that. So if you guys are listening in and you aren't familiar with Mothman, and we're talking about cryptids, and you're not familiar with these things, Mothman is this being that has been seen that supposedly is around 6 feet tall, full of feathers, usually appears at nighttime. 90% of the sightings have been seen around the nighttime, and is propagated by gigantic saucer-shaped red eyes, right? Yes. And it's not that they are beaming light, it's that they're reflective, right? So it's really interesting, and they say that Mothman may have the face or a beak of some sort. But what makes it different is that it stands on 2 legs, similar to a person. So if you're out there, can have the concept of a feathered, dark figure lumbering 6 to 7 feet tall with a wingspan that can be as wide as 10 feet. But those wings, when folded on its back, actually look up quite a bit larger. So it appears like these eyes are just perpetrating out of a void of black. Feathers are black or dark. Some say have a reddish hue in the light. So when you're driving down the street, when these reports have been given, it's almost like Vanta black. Like the feathers kind of reflect the majority of the light, so you're almost seeing black on black with just a hint of color. So when you guys are out there and we're talking about Mothman, that's the thing that we're talking about. So this thing that was seen recently around, of course, Chicago and different things, tell them, Riggs, that's what they're talking about. The talons for feet, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Let's pick it back up. What you got? Chicago.
So, Chicago, we're not, that was the most recent sightings. People claim to see it around the Chicago metro area, which is interesting because Mothman is typically known as a prelude to some kind of disaster.
Okay.
So when Mothman is typically spotted, it is seen as foreboding.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that doesn't mean Mothman is necessarily bad or evil or good. It just means that he precedes some type of warning to something that's going to happen.
Sure. Let's get to the story of it. So we got this cryptid thing, right? And so we're talking a little bit about what it is. But for people listening, what is the story? How did it come about? Where did it show up from? I mean, most people understand Bigfoot. Most people understand Sasquatch. Most people understand Nessie. Those are things that are in like popular culture, our mind. Debunked, not debunked, love it, hate it, doesn't matter. People are familiar with the idea. Mothman seems to be new on the scene. So what's the story? What's the story of Point Pleasant?
1967, or actually late 1966,
Yeah.
in November, first sightings around the TNT area
Uh-huh.
in Point Pleasant, West Virginia.
Gotcha.
The backstory of what's going on in Point Pleasant at this time is very fascinating. So there's a lot of military activity, considering that is a small town in West Virginia right on the Ohio River. In fact, you can see Ohio across the river,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see the town of Gallipolis. So
Yeah.
when you get there, you get a very interesting feeling from the place. It's one of those places that just has a sense about it that you can tell something has happened there that's changed the place forever. It's left an indelible mark. So, late 1966, some teenagers were driving down some country roads and back roads out towards the TNT area, which at the time was controlled by the military, and they were actually manufacturing explosives. That's why they called it the TNT area.
Mm-hmm.
They were manufacturing ordnance out there for the military. So many of those areas, as I understand it, were off limits and restricted. So late 1966, these teenagers are driving down the road toward the TNT area when the first sighting of Mothman occurs.
Right.
So he's flying above their car. They see him in the tree line in the woods around that area, and
Right.
it's really, it left a mark on those people. You can tell when they report their stories that something happened to them. They saw something. It left a mark on them that to this day, when they speak about it, and you can see the interviews on other shows where they talk about this, you could tell something happened to them that left its mark.
Okay. All right.
So
So these guys driving down see something. That's not too interesting to me. That's it. I mean, I see stuff all the time. Maybe it's the alcohol. Blame it on the right? Blame it on the alcohol.
Maybe.
So a sighting, 1966.
Yes.
What makes it special?
So they reported this to the police.
Mm-hmm.
The police investigated, and the police began to see these things. Sworn law enforcement officers at the time reported having encounters with these things, or with this thing. So then sightings began to occur more and more and more.
Mm-hmm.
People began to see this to a point that the whole town became abuzz with this talk of the Mothman. But at that time, they didn't call it the Mothman.
What do they call it?
The Birdman.
Okay.
So at the
Birdman.
time, it was referred to as the Birdman, or the giant bird.
Okay.
So people began seeing this all in and around the area, all the way up from late 1966 all the way into 1967.
Okay.
So I think it's important to take note that although the evidence is anecdotal, there's a preponderance of anecdotal evidence for this. Like going back to flat Earth, like you can prove or disprove the curvature of the Earth. Mothman's a little more difficult because the evidence is anecdotal. However, there is a lot of anecdotal evidence. There are a lot of eyewitness testimonies.
I think what you're getting at here too, if we kind of bring the story together a little bit more. So beginning in November-ish of 1966, right, there appears to be, or maybe just a little bit before, I'm not very familiar with Mothman. Of course, I've seen some of the documentaries. I'm looking at the Wikipedia page, just looking for this. I've heard of Mothman before, so I'm kind of the skeptic here, reading and just giving you that position. I know that you've really thought about Mothman a lot. So with that preface in mind, for those that are listening, for everybody that's out there, Mothman didn't just appear once. I think that's an important thing.
Yes.
And Mothman appeared several times. And I think as you look at lore, right, the idea of this concept of a Mothman, which is what it's called today, but the Birdman, this idea of a winged bird man type creature, Daedalus almost, but not Daedalus, right? That idea
Yes.
goes back a long time. For us, like you were saying, in more modern times, the sightings of Mothman, I think, are generally denoted with a premonition or a foreboding of something going to happen. That's one of the things, prognosticating, I guess. and that Mothman hasn't just been seen once. It started during the late 1966 winter of 1966, and it continued through winter until an event happened. And what was that event? I want you to talk about that event.
So
And then it didn't. Then it was gone, right?
yes,
Well, it was gone in Point Pleasant.
it was gone in Point Pleasant.
Okay, so what is that event? So what's the whole story here? Mothman shows up. Kids drive and see it. Multiple sightings. We'll go into a few of those. People getting scared. The town even rallies a posse to go out and hunt the
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, one of the documentaries, a very excellent one by Small Town Monsters. If you get
Shout
a
out to
chance
Small
check
Town
that-
Monsters, baby. Shout
Yeah.
out to Small Town Monsters.
Absolutely, Seth Breedlove and the guys over there. If you want some excellent content on
Yeah.
mysterious stuff and cryptids, they're it.
And you can find them on Amazon Prime.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're good stuff. And you can find some of their documentaries on YouTube. Just depends.
Yes.
But
So December 15th, 1967. Completely, totally unforetold, but tragic event. 1967, December 15th, the Silver Bridge collapsed. There were many deaths. It's quite an unfortunate event.
So the important part about the Silver Bridge and why it's important is that it connects Point Pleasant to Gallipolis
Yes,
across the Ohio River.
that's correct.
Point Pleasant is in West Virginia,
Yes,
and Gallipolis is in Ohio.
yes,
Okay, so it crosses the river. So this is a major bridge, a suspension bridge, which is one that's held by links or chains. Think of the Golden Gate Bridge, guys. Spanning the mighty Ohio. Not as mighty as the Mississippi Friends, but the mighty Ohio.
yes.
Spanning the mighty Ohio. On a Christmas Day parade, there was a band out there. There were cars that were crossing. There were things that were going on. Although it wasn't Christmas Day, it was a celebration of all of those things, Christmas related. And the bridge collapses.
Yes. So the bridge collapses. There's cars on the bridge. There's people immediately, just tossed into the water.
Right.
The shock of the temperature of the water alone would be enough that it would make it very difficult for people to survive that type
Almost
of situation.
freezing, actually.
Yeah, almost freezing. And as you know, I've been in very cold water before. I know what it's like when your body is suddenly immersed in cold water. And
He's talking really cold water, friends.
Yeah,
If you're listening, it's not just a cold shower, okay?
Yeah, really cold water. What happens is your body automatically goes into a shock response and you gasp for air, which is a situation that would encourage drowning. So a lot of people, one minute you're on a bridge and the next you're in a vehicle and you're literally underwater.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a terrible tragedy, and it completely shifted the focus of the town. So the town prior to that was, I don't know, maybe almost could be categorized as mass hysteria, almost to a point,
Maybe.
where people were just becoming obsessed with Mothman. It's what everyone in town was talking
Everybody
about.
was talking about it, yeah.
And there were some other interesting things going on at Point Pleasant at the time that began to accompany these sightings.
Okay.
Phenomenon such as men in black, if you will, government G-men
G-Men.
coming into town.
Okay. So that seems to follow, right? You got a sighting of something strange, G-Men, men in black are always there.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, but this still isn't the whole story, is it? There's
No.
actually more. What else? What took place? What was there? What things were in Point Pleasant that you just don't find in every all-American city?
Well, the ammunition manufacturing plant, and they had large concrete bunkers, which when I was there, I went into some of them.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now they're all graffitied up and overgrown, but they're in a marshy type of
Swampy area.
a swampy area, essentially. Yes, this part of West Virginia,
Beside the Ohio.
yeah, is beside the river, so it's in the river valley. It's not as mountainous.
Right.
There's hills and things there, but it's not as mountainous as the rest of the state of West Virginia.
So, there's also another facility that produces power in this area.
Yes.
Right? And it's a coal facility, right?
No, I believe it's
No, it's not coal.
It looks like a nuclear.
No, it doesn't
Nuclear
look.
power-
It is a nuclear power
nuclear
plant
power
right
plant.
across the river.
Yes.
Right? And so, how long has that been there?
I'm not sure.
I think.
I'd have to look at.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
you could
think
look
it
it
was
up real quick.
I think it was you know, it was during the atomic age, so it was built
Yes.
in the 60s, 70s, which is about the time, it was built about the time that Mothman showed up. So we've got a nuclear power plant across the river, we've got sightings of this creature, and we've got reports of G-men, men in black, right, running around, asking questions. Now, we can't verify Mothman other than anecdotal evidence.
That's correct.
So throw it away. No good. Not for me. I'm not a believer. But there were indeed government officials going around talking to people. See, that's verifiable. That's interesting, don't you think? Talk about that.
So these G-men, if you will, these men in black, went around town and began to tell people to not talk about Mothman. They began to tell them, basically, don't report on it. There was a local reporter going through town who was writing stories on it, and it began to get national attention.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that another reporter from New York came in, and he's John Keel. He wrote the book
Right.
on Mothman, and
There's a movie made about it.
Yeah, in the early 2000s, Richard Gere,
Yeah.
Deborah Messing was, I think, Richard Gere and Deborah Messing were in it.
Okay.
Great movie, as well as the lady from Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
No, not from
That's
Jurassic
okay.
Park. Either way,
Either way, it's all good.
yeah. But the movie took the events that happened in the 1960s and kind of transposed them into the modern era. So it was kind of like a fictionalized retelling of what happened.
Well, I don't care about the movie so much.
Yes.
I'm just saying that there was a movie involved.
Yeah.
It's just interesting that John Keel wrote a book had a movie. But back to the reporter. There was a reporter reporting on all this stuff. That's
Yes.
the meat.
So she was writing stories for the local newspaper, got national attention.
Right.
The town's abuzz. Then all of a sudden, people from what they assumed was the government.
Right.
I don't know if they ever identified themselves as being from the government.
Good question. Time out. Were there ever any official reports, like Freedom of Information Acts that have been filed or anything like that have shown that maybe the FBI or some government black suit agency, black limousine, was down there?
No,
Oh.
not to my knowledge.
Well, great. So we can throw that out, right?
Maybe.
See, I agree. We can't really throw that out because although a couple of kids getting drunk and driving 100 miles an hour on the street, you could say, oh, I saw something.
Absolutely.
Many people saw the G-men. It's not just one person. The whole town, everyone out there, it knew that these guys were operating in town. They were speaking to the witnesses, right? They were going there. From what we understand, from reports and everything, there weren't any papers filed. But guys would show up, tell you don't talk, roll out. I don't know that there were any threats that were issued, but maybe it was under the veil of threats. So there was something that the entire town agrees on that can be at least corroborated. Even if the whole town can't corroborate Mothman because only certain people saw it, the whole town at the time did corroborate black suits running around saying shush. That's interesting.
That is very interesting because that begs the question.
Does.
So maybe Mothman, isn't real. Maybe it's a case of misidentification.
What I want you to follow that, but you brought it up. What is the general idea of what is the misidentification? There is an answer. There was a gentleman, a geological service representative that went there, a naturalist, a biologist that went there and did a survey. And he found some very striking resemblances to some passing but natural wildlife. And what was that?
A sandhill crane.
Oh, does anybody out there know what a sandhill crane looks like? I got crickets around here somewhere. It's a crane that's about stretched out, about 5 feet tall when it stands. Wingspan, most birds have a wingspan right around 2 to 3 times their height, their stretched out height, so that would put a wingspan of about 10 feet. And the largest specimens. And what color is the plumage around its eyes?
I'm not sure.
Red.
Well,
You haven't seen a sandhill crane?
It would look red, I'm sure. a lot of reflected light in an animal's eyes look red.
I said plumage.
Yeah,
So
I
feathers.
heard you.
Oh,
Feathers.
Yeah, so this thing, we got it on screen. If you guys haven't seen it, this thing is what a lot of people say, go away, birds. This thing right here is what a lot of people say is Mothman, the misidentified body of Mothman. And for those that are listening, I've got a picture of a sandhill crane in flight. It's got a red plumage cap, beak, not very feathery face, not a lot of plumage, but wide sweeping wings, long legs with talonous feet. And they come in several different colors depending on male or female. One, the female, is reddish brown, which would look very dark at nighttime. And the male is white with black tips, which would not look as dark at nighttime, but could look black, depending.
Well, it really depends on your lighting conditions.
I agree.
I've spent a lot of time outside in the dark at night, and I understand what it takes to see things in darkness and poor light conditions.
You see the night's so mysterious. But
Yes.
looking at this, looking at that picture, I find this funny. Is it easy to misidentify that for Mothman?
I think if the right conditions were there, yes. We have cases of misidentification all the time. Eyewitness testimonies, especially in the dark,
Right.
can be very misleading.
Right.
And once you get that feeling, it can push you to some type of confirmation bias, if you
Right.
will, where you see something, you can't explain it, so your mind fills in the gaps.
So there is some natural wildlife in the area that could be the cause of misidentification.
Yes.
So that's just a part of the mystery.
That's a logical explanation for
I
the
don't think I would
sightings.
misidentify a bird as Mothman, especially with the discussion of how Mothman followed Stacy and Scarlett or whoever they were driving, and it followed them, circled them twice. There's some
Yes.
things. So there are some interesting things. But before I asked you about the crane, I'm going to get you back on track. Before I derailed you, I just wanted everyone to see
Yes.
this and hear this about this crane. Even if there was misidentification, there are some other suggestions that you were going to bring up about what could be possible alternatives.
Well, there's layers to this mystery. Many, many layers.
I think we're going to get into that in just a second. Let me go ahead and get us pulling out once again. We're going to say hey and give our brains a moment to think about Mothman. As a reminder that Virginia Beach is a town full. 450,000 people, 490-something square miles. It is huge. And I'd like to give a little business shout out to some people that are out there. Guys, if you need a photographer, videographer, Robert Ham Photography, which is me. You guys know that I provide photography services for weddings, and I hate to say it, but funerals too. That's been happening a lot lately. One of the people that I work with is a DJ named DJ Greg Riggins. He's the owner of Wizard of Sounds DJs, great DJ. So if you need music for your party, just a wonderful person to work with, always keeps the crowd going. Really nice and enjoyable to work with him. So if you got that, check out Wizard of Sound DJs with an S.com. Check out Greg Riggins. Tell him Rob sent you. Maybe he'll play a special song for you. I don't know. Sometimes he even gets out there and dances. Really keeps that crowd going. We love you, Greg. Take care, baby. And that's it for right now. Let's get back to the story of Mothman. Okay, so alternate theories. Go.
All right, so as I said, layers to this story. There's
Right.
the physical aspect of Mothman, which is the sightings, which is anecdotal, eyewitness testimony,
Mm-hmm.
easy to kind of say it could have been a sandhill crane at night. All that I'm with.
Right.
Now, we covered the government agents coming into the town, telling people to discontinue writing stories, spreading the news, and this is well before the age of any kind of social media. So what you're having here is you could slow information in the late 1960s until it hit the national news. Then it would
Okay.
become a household name, if you will, household phenomenon. But before it got to that national level, you might be able to keep information on a relatively on a local level, unlike today, where when something goes viral, it's just instantaneously can be accessed by the entire planet, essentially. all the people on the globe planet can be reached with information very quickly.
Real quick question about the globe planet. I had somebody to tell me that the sun doesn't rise as the Earth's flat, but radio communications go line of sight, right?
That is correct.
So how come we can't send a radio signal directly from Australia, Sydney, to the Arctic or Alaska? How about our forts up in Alaska?
Because radio communications shoot in a straight line.
Are you sure they shoot in a straight line?
Yes.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure of that.
Yeah, they do shoot in a straight line, guys. Just like any other electromagnetic radiation, that's what it is. It shoots in a straight line. And so in order to get to Alaska from Sydney, Australia, this is funny because we just bring it up. I think it's funny because the preponderance of the evidence is overwhelming. What do you have to go through? What do you have to do with that signal?
You have to relay that signal.
Ooh, big word, relay. Guys, big word. Check out the comments on the video. You'll understand why this is so funny to us. You have to relay the signal because the Earth is a sphere, right? And this is something we've known about ever since radio communications have come about. In fact, that's one of the things those proponents of flat Earth also love Nikola Tesla and completely screw up his ideas of electromagnetic frequencies and things like that. But what did Tesla, even your own beloved Tesla, you flat earthers, what did he like to say? You had to have relay stations. His Tesla coil, his multi-megawatt Tesla coils, required relay stations to properly conduct the electricity around the planet because it wouldn't not only attenuate over great distance, that was the thing with Tesla, non-attenuation of radio waves. That was a big deal.
Maybe Mothman came to tell us the Earth was flat.
So anyways, my friends, nice little aside. You brought it up, so shame on you for that aside. No,
my fault.
I love it.
So, multiple layers to Mothman.
Yeah.
Okay, the mystery of the government agents coming into town trying to slow or stop the dissemination of the information about Mothman. Now, the other aspect of Mothman gets a little bit into the supernatural, where you have this mysterious being who spoke with people there through telekinesis, if you will, or through thought, and then actually physically showed up and stopped people on the side of the road. They came out of their vehicles, or he came up to their vehicles, I don't remember exactly, and spoke to them. And sometimes audibly and sometimes just into their mind. And his name was Indrid Cold. That's what he told them his name was. And
interesting.
Yes, very interesting. So
isn't that a well-known title or name?
Prior to Mothman, no. Prior to all of these things with Mothman, Indrid Cold was not something that I think anyone had ever heard of. So it's very interesting that this being, if you will, accompanied these things. So you've got a town on edge from 1966 to 1967 to the bridge collapse.
During the nuclear age, with a munitions plant
During
right around
the Cold War.
During the Cold War.
Yes.
We haven't even talked about the multiple sightings of little saucer-shaped discs in the sky.
So that was also accompanying. People began to report that they were seeing unidentified flying objects, which of course doesn't necessarily, you say UFO, people automatically think aliens.
That doesn't mean aliens.
It doesn't mean aliens necessarily.
Something you can't explain.
It just means an unidentified flying object.
And just as another thing, many times, especially in the 60s, people reported seeing unidentified flying objects, UFOs or UFO sightings around what types of power plants?
Nuclear power plants.
Interesting. And today, as research has continued, they have found some supporting evidence that nuclear plants can cause some kind of spherical lightning or ball lightning, especially during thunderstorms, things like that.
I wasn't aware of that. Very interesting.
Okay, so that's not just anecdotal, but during, well, I don't have the resources up for it here, so you guys can check it out on your own. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of stuff. There's different charges for the ground and the air that are happening. The power plants going through, of course, fusion, stuff like that. And, well,
So you have military munitions plant, nuclear power plant, a spotting of a mysterious creature that people thus far have not been able to explain. So that tells you that it was foreign to the area. As people in West Virginia, I'm sure there are plenty of hunters in the town. Many of those people that hunted reported seeing Mothman. They would be used to being out in the woods and the swampy areas surrounding the McClintock wildlife area.
right.
And they'd be able to tell you with some reasonable certainty if what they saw was a sandhill crane or some kind of other foreign creature in their area, because they would have a schema for it in their mind to understand what they're looking at relatively well. That doesn't mean that it's not anecdotal. It doesn't mean that they couldn't misidentify. But it's just stating that there's a lot of people out there who saw that, and looking at the sandhill crane, even in the dark. Now, yes, I could see where it could be misidentified. But I do think it's a bit of a stretch based on the preponderance, the pure number of eyewitness sightings and testimony.
Mm-hmm.
So now, after that, you have the G-men coming into town telling people not to speak on things. You have this mysterious supernatural man injured cold coming into town and speaking to people. And then at the culminating point of that, where all this is reaching a fever pitch, you have the horrible tragedy of the collapse of the Silver Bridge.
Mm.
So you have a little bit over a year-long period, because the first sighting was in November 1966. The Silver Bridge collapsed on December 15th, 1967.
Mm-hmm.
And from all the reporting, and people that still live in Point Pleasant that are alive today say that pretty much put a stop to all the Mothman talk.
Right.
The collapse of the Silver Bridge abruptly stopped a lot of this stuff, all this talk, because people felt, according to their conscience and decency, that it was inappropriate to be going on about something like Mothman and mysterious in the face of such a real, genuine, tragic event.
Right. So, did Mothman stop appearing where the sightings appeared, or did they just disappear because they never happened in the first place?
Here's the thing. I think if you're in a small town where a lot of people know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and you have such a horrible tragedy, and everyone stops talking about Mothman, you're not going to be the one to bring it up again anytime soon. Because you're just going to understand, I think, innately that it's not an appropriate subject matter in the face of everything that just happened.
Right.
So it would have a very chilling effect on that feeling of like, wow, this is a mystery, this is fantastic, I want to find out what this is, I want to get to the bottom of it.
Sure.
So that's going to stop things kind of cold in their tracks.
Interesting. I like that concept. We're going to get back to that here in just a second. Guys, we want to talk about some fun things to do in Virginia Beach as you ponder why Mothman suddenly disappeared after the bridge collapse, that terrible tragedy in 1967. Guys, if you're down here in Virginia Beach, something you got to do is check out the Rudy Inlet tours. You got to go over to the dolphin watching tours in Virginia Beach. Catch them out going down by the lighthouse, it's straight out of the Rudy Inlet. Absolutely beautiful place to watch dolphins. You can even go on whale watching tours. And also, get a boat to go out and catch some fish. You got lots of fishing out here, tuna and everything else. Big old fish, sport fish out here off of Virginia Beach. It's a lot of fun. You can check it all out over at Rudy Tours, rudytours.com down here in Virginia Beach. Fun place to visit right on Rudy Inlet. And that said, we got to talk about this Mothman disappear. We have a comment here that says, entertaining Mothman. This is Zach the Driver. Guys, check out Zach the Driver. This guy's hilarious. Entertaining Mothman after promoting the Flat Earth Society. Laughing my ass off. That's a joke. First of all, Zach, you're wrong. We never promoted the Flat Earth Society at all. In fact, we completely and utterly destroyed the idea that the Earth could be flat just without science, just by talking through with simple observation. Number one. Number two, we also proposed the idea, you make a video. We'd love to see what you got to say. Put your face on the screen, Zach. You won't do it because you're afraid. That's okay, but I'd love to see it. And number three, explain the sunrise. If you don't believe the boat, if you don't believe Jesus' boat, if you don't believe Jesus' truck and shark boat, that's fine. You don't believe your own eyes, explain the sunrise, right? So he says that the Mothman is a joke and the show is a joke. This is the type of comments that we love to get because these are hilarious to play with. The idea was never that the Earth was flat. We didn't believe that. And I don't believe in Mothman. But I do believe that there was some kind of phenomenon, something that was going on right down there in Point Pleasant. There were lots of things. I don't necessarily think that they were supernatural, but there's a munitions plant, there's a nuclear plant, and there are these strange sightings, and there are legitimately verifiable reports of people in black suits, we call them G-men, but we don't know who they really were, talking to the witnesses that were making the reports to the sheriff and telling them to not talk about this. So there was something happening. There's some credibility to that. There's zero credibility to the flat earth. Go ahead, Zach. Zach, the driver, please make a video. Post it on the channel. Love to give you some publicity for that. I absolutely would. I'd like to hear what you have to say. So, hitting right on back to Mothman and these things that are going on. Let's wrap this up. We've got to put a little bow on this. What's the ultimate takeaway?
Do you want my personal opinion?
Yeah, let us know. Give it to us, Riggs. This is straight from Riggs, man. Straight from Riggs.
Okay. Personally, I don't believe in Mothman the way most people believe in Mothman, as far as it being some, mysterious cryptid creature coming into town.
Right.
I kind of subscribe to the idea that there was something going on there. What that is, I don't have an answer for. I'm not going to say that I do.
Sure.
But I think a lot of the evidence that is there shows that something happened there. And it's fascinated me enough that on a drive across the country, I decided to stop through there.
Right.
On my way back. I stopped in and stayed at the Low Hotel, great place. Stayed there for a day. And while I was there, went out to the TNT area. Walked through
the ordnance area.
Yes, walked through the bunkers where the munitions plant used to be in the general vicinity of. Went out there and got a feel for the lay of the land and saw what was there. Drove past the nuclear plant and got a real feel for how, if you were out there back in the 60s, you could see something and kind of throw, it would have a profound effect on you if you saw something, even if it was a sandhill crane out there.
Sure. And the reason's quite simple, man. Information technology, the world today is so different than 1960, right?
Absolutely.
And when you go out, I don't know how much listeners, and I don't know how much people actually get out into the woods. But there is something alluring about nature, number one. It's something that is exciting about being out, one with nature, hearing that, experiencing the human experience without the modern beauty of cell phones or air conditioning or bug repellent.
Yes.
Yeah. And so sometimes you can be in places that are right around the corner, but so isolated you never even knew that they were there. Even here in Virginia Beach, there's little spots of land. We were talking about that just the other day, Riggs. There's little spots of land in this huge city of Virginia Beach, 493 square miles, 450,000 people, 3.5, however you get a half, military bases. In here in Virginia Beach, the sound of freedom, F-18s flying over my head constantly. And yet, right across the street from my house, past the horse farm, is a little plot of land that's nothing more than trees and swamp. And it's about half a square mile, a little bit more. You step foot into that spot, surrounded by modern life, and modernity takes us back to the 1800s. It's immediately orienteering. This is like, the Oregon Trail,
Yes.
Don't die of dysentery, right? Really, it is. And it's right there. And if you spend any time in places like that, you'll realize that the trees will block out the sound of the cars. And even in that small area, the foliage dampens you. It almost keeps you secluded. So heading out to an area like the TNT area, heading out to a spot like Point Pleasant, especially in the 1960s, it was undeveloped, It was raw in many ways.
It's amazing.
It's a river valley, right?
Yeah, it's in the Ohio River Basin, River
Yeah.
Valley area. And if you go out there, you feel, you sense something. And maybe it's just me because I've watched a lot of material on the Mothman, so of course I'm going to have a little bit of confirmation bias, but you know what, I don't care. Because it's about the mystery.
Well, here's the deal. This is a fun story.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So if nothing else, right, there are two things that we know that happened. Just before the bridge collapsed, and causation doesn't mean correlation. That bridge has nothing to do with it. There was a tragedy preceding Mothman, right? So if Mothman was just a bit of hysteria because one person reported on it and then other people reported on it, seeing something they couldn't explain, well, it ended. It ended with the tragedy in 1967 of the Silver Bridge collapse. Okay. That still doesn't change the fact that there are corroborated reports of the government men, the G-men, people in black clothes, black suit, officials saying, stop talking about whatever it is you're talking about. And if anything, the story of Mothman is a great cover for maybe something else that could have actually been going on. Some type of power production testing, some type of anything that could have been happening. Because there was an ordnance manufacturing plant there and a nuclear power station across the river. So really, guys, this could be the story for Stranger Things 2. The Montauk Monster, yeah, Mothman. The same kind of concept could happen, the upside down, right?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up Stranger Things because in that when they go to the reporter secretly and they're trying to blow the story, it says you can't go to the press with this. You got to make it more palatable for the public.
Yeah.
So they water it down, but they make it bad enough so that it's like 3 Mile Island type of a story.
Yeah.
So it then becomes plausible that people would believe it.
Right.
And then they put it out there. So if you want to cover up something that's going on, create a mystery and then stop that mystery.
Yeah. So interesting that you bring that up. I like it. I like it. We're going to have another couple of comments about Mothman as we close right now. It's time for the drop report. What is happening in Virginia Beach this weekend, guys? Guys, lots of stuff going on. Club 415 out there, just off of Laskin Road. It's a great place to go. Hit it up. Have some nice drinks, some fun. It's a modern type club. Dancing on the tables, you can do that too. You want to hit the bank, go out for a little bit of country line dancing, but a little more modern beat, even a little auto-tune from time to time. You can catch that in Chesapeake at the bank. Nice club, packs quick. If you're looking for a little more family-friendly fun, we've already talked about the dolphin watching tours down there off of Rudy Tours, but also just a walk on the beach itself. Now, if you want to get away from the ocean front, head on down to Sandbridge. I love Sandbridge during stormy, overcast weather because it's the only place in Virginia Beach where you can actually get away. Get away from what looks like a built-up downtown oceanfront resort and look out over the water at the storm on the horizon and really think about what's next. If you keep going that far, you can get to Little Island Park. A little bit further, you can get to the wildlife refuge down there. You go have a little camp out on a dune in the storm and wonder about Mothman. I don't know, that's just for me. Riggs, what do you think?
That sounds like a fantastic idea.
I love it. We might have to do that.
That would be excellent. You know, the whole thing with Mothman, for me, it's just fun. The whole cryptid thing, I don't put too much stock in any of it, honestly. However, I spent a good portion of my life being very serious.
Yeah.
So, to be able to go back out there and touch a little mystery, even if it's, you know, a bit fanciful or kind of close to myth, it's just enticing to get back out there and see it and be a part of this lore, this Americana. You know, all these countries have these long-standing histories and these legends and lores, and in America, you know, we have our own, but people often overlook it. And I think Mothman is one of those things. It's a true piece of Americana. When you go to Point Pleasant, you feel it. You understand, you know, what happened in a place like that to drive, you know, that lore and that myth to come to life. And it's lasted. So that tells you something about it. The fact that it's still being talked about today.
That's interesting. And when we're kind of closing out the show, but we got a really interesting email. I just had one pop up through Mary Love 123. I'm not going to say at the but anyways, she says we should do a show on the Witch of Pungo. She was apparently a resident of Virginia Beach, thinking the Witch of Pungo would be a pretty interesting show. I think that might be something we could do a little research for next week or the week after. What do you think, Riggs?
That sounds great.
Yeah, Witch of Pungo down here, Witch Duck Road. People think of Salem witch trials up there in Massachusetts, but you know, we were floating witches in the river in Virginia Beach a long time ago.
Wow. Yeah,
It's
a lot of
crazy.
people
That
don't
happened
know
right
that.
here, right around the corner. In fact, we should probably be a good idea to look at all the ghost stories from the pirates and everything off the coast of Virginia Beach and the East Coast, of course, down there at Nag's Head. This whole spot was ripe for that because of Portsmouth, Norfolk. These are big ports.
Well,
So the Barbary pirates, well, not the Barbary, but pirates down here would come around and sink treasure into the sand, they say. Oh, man, lots of stuff.
maybe while we're out in Pungo, we'll find a bit of original Virginia Beach area lore and
Wow.
find Dr. Madblood's lab.
Dude,
You never
if
know.
we
Might
found
just be out
Dr.
there.
Mad Blood, that would blow my mind.
Maybe his mad scientist lab is really out there.
I love Dr. Mad Blood.
I would love to have that
That'd be
that
awesome.
hair. That Dr. Madblood hair.
He still makes shows.
Does he?
Yeah, I think
Wow.
you were telling me one they made back in what, 2020, 2021, just before
Yeah.
pandemic.
I stopped following after the pandemic because things, that had
Yeah, had it
that
in.
kind of stopped everything. But that's some old school Virginia Beach mythos right there.
I love
Dr.
it.
Madblood.
Dr. Mad Blood. Well, friends, that's going to be our show for you today. We love that you came and joined us. If you guys would like to submit some original music for your band or something to be played on the outro, go ahead and send that to live@thelocal757.com. We'll get you in touch with our producers and try to make that happen. It'll be a lot of fun to be able to showcase one of these local Virginia Beach bands. We want something that not explicit, though. No curse words, just fun words. But it's got to have a good beat. And with that, we're out, babies. Riggs, you want to say goodbye?
I just want to say thanks to all of you who tuned in, all those that commented. And yeah, maybe it's a little bit of a joke, but if it is, it's because we don't take ourselves too seriously, and life's got to be fun, buddy.
Yeah, we're
It's
having a
gotta
good
be
time.
fun.
All right, well, stay right there. It's your outro music today. Enjoy it. Giving him a little outro music.
Yeah.
Yeah, this guy.
Mothman.
You know what? Oh, we're off. We're off. I'm letting them hear the music.
Oh, okay.
He's so mad. He came back.
That was awesome.
He came back.
He came back.
I'm gonna stay right.
That's a good
This
song.
is it.